Imagi-Native!
Today on Imagi-Native, we traveled to visit Jesse Clemans in the Polson area to talk with her about her finger weaving and its history.
I'm Jesse Clemans, and I was born and raised just about a half a mile down the hill in my father's homestead house. I hate to tell you the year, but it was 1925. And so then I lived all over the United States after I took nurse's training in St. Patrick's Hospital, and then I was over into the Army for a little while, and that's where I met my husband, and then we traveled all over on construction all over the United States. Came back here later and decided this was a pretty good place to live, so we bought this piece of property and lived here ever since. Well, we call it finger weaving, and it makes the sashes, or it can do different types of hats. And sashes are things that the men wore around their waist during the fur trade back in the 1800s. And they were worn because, number one, it kept the body of the men warm, and it also, they could put their knives or small items in the sashes as they put them around their waist. And it also supported their waist when they were doing a lot of lifting and paddling their canoes. So they were known as the Hudson Bay sash, or had different names, but mostly because they were Hudson Bay sashes, because that's who the men worked for, was the Hudson Bay Company, which was the big fur company in Canada. It's been about 10 years ago when I first became interested. I didn't know much about it until I went up north and I saw some of the men wearing the sashes, and I learned about history. And I didn't know anything about how to weave it, and so I wrote a letter to every museum in Canada to find out what I could learn. And one day I got a phone call from a man in Edmonton, Alberta, and he said, would you like to learn how to finger weave? And I said, sure. So one day he showed up at my doorstep and said he was going to teach me finger weaving. He'd come all the way down from Canada, and I was supposed to go to work that night. I finally had to get somebody to go to work for me and do my shift so I could learn finger weaving. And he went in town and got some wool, and he started me on finger weaving. And so then I would go up to Canada, and he'd teach me some more, or I'd get some more books, and that's how I learned to finger weave. It was an interesting education. He was certainly an interesting man to teach me too, because he knew all about Canadian history. That's how I learned to finger weave. They're made out of wool yarn, and of course you can use different things if you want to, but with the old timers they used the hand woven wool yarn. And that's how I make mine out of. Originally I started making mine from wool that I got hand done in New Brunswick, but that company burned down, so now I have to buy my stuff from Walmart or somewhere. But I make mine out of 100% wool, because traditionally that's how they were made. Well, you decide how wide you're going to make them, what colors you're going to use, and then you're going to put 10 yarns here and 10 colors here and 10 colors here, 12 colors over here. You decide what pattern you're going to use. If I had a sasher, I could show you. And then you have to have a place to tie it. You have to tie a place over here, like to 2 chairs or 2 nails or anything so you can stretch the yarn out. And then you sit down and with your fingers you manipulate the weaving. Learn the history of it and learn how important they were, and then I'll teach you. I don't know of anybody else in the whole state of Montana that teaches. I've taught at a lot of the museums around in Canada. They've invited me up. In fact, I was just up north, 250 miles north of Dawson City, at a show up there just last couple of months ago. And I go up there and I finger weave, and then I sell them up there because they understand the culture of them. And the old people will come up to me and, oh yes, my grandpa had one of those. So it's very interesting. And when you see the older people, they appreciate the tradition of them. Montana Circle of American Masters. It seems pretty uptown, but I saw an ad in the paper that a lady had written, and she wanted to know about people had done any artwork that might be interested in the Montana State Cultural. So I wrote them a letter, and they showed up, and they were tickled to death to check my work, and then they went through it and checked it over, and then I was asked to come down to the state capitol, and I was awarded a real nice award. And there were 3 other, I think there were 8 of us all together on different things, and it was nice to see that there were several Indian men down there for their braiding and their beadwork, and so it was really interesting. I was surprised that there was a huge crowd down there. It was down at the Capitol, and the second in command, it wasn't the governor, it was the guy next to him. But anyway, after he gave us our awards, he come up to me and he said, I've got one in my office. Would you come in and tell me whether it's finger woven or whether it's done on a loom? So I went back to his office. I had to tell him, I'm sorry, it was done on a loom. It wasn't finger woven. I can tell, but a lot of people can't. But and most of the sashes now are done on a loom, but I like to do it the old-fashioned way, and the older people appreciate that. I'm sure most people know what a loom is. I have one in my bedroom, and it already has a bunch of strings on it, and all you have to do is just the person, winds the color of the yarn back and forth in these threads that are already on the loom, and that makes the sash. But the way I do it, I make it from scratch. I just make my own yarn out, and then I weave the pattern on that yarn. I'm sure most of you know what a big loom is, and that's what most people use them on, but I do it without a loom, just with my fingers. And what I do, I weave with my fingers, and then what I weave, it happens behind me too. Then eventually I have to take all that out that I've done behind my fingers and just save what I've done ahead of my fingers. So it is time consuming.
Jessie was kind enough to share with us some of her finger weaving sash talent.
This is a frame that a friend of mine made. They used to be made in the old timers. All they did was just have 2 pieces where they can nails on the wall or wherever to stretch this yarn out with. But my friend made me this because I can take it when I'm traveling and I don't have to tie it to a wall or find some pot to put it on or something. So this is a great invention that he made for me. And I take it put it in my pickup, and away I go. And this is you start from the beginning of the yarn, of the size of your sash, and you take these fingers here and pull the yarn over to your other hand, and right here is you change one color for another, and right here is where all the action happens. One finger up, one finger down. And you have to keep pushing this back here because what you form up here will form up here, and then eventually you have to stop and take all that out behind you. Strain one up, one down, one up, one down. Then you pull it back. It's just under and over and under and over. It's quite time consuming. You have to watch it real careful or you can make a mistake pretty easy, which I just about did there, but there, that goes over that way. Now that's halfway done on one side. Then you turn it over, go to the middle, and start again. Have to be sure to get the right one or you end up making a mistake. So it's just over and under and then over and under. Just be sure you get the right piece. As you can see, it doesn't happen too fast. Now that red there I grabbed on so I'll bring it across here. So you just keep doing this. Keep changing the different colors. And this all forms behind you. And then when it gets up here till you don't have any more space, then you have to stop and pull this all out again and start over. See, right here you start from the middle and bring your middle over again. So it's just kind of repetitious. Sometimes I use a finer wool and sometimes I use a heavier wool. It just depends on how exactly it's going to be used. You can use different kinds of yarn, rayon or silk or whatever you want to, but that isn't practical as far as the voyageurs used to be. They wouldn't have liked that. They want this heavy wool. You can make it as wide as you want. You can make many different patterns. Nothing has to be a certain pattern. You can do as you want to with the pattern. And any color, usually red was used. Red and blue and green. I suppose an hour you could make 2 inches maybe, if that, depending on the size of your yarn. If you had a real thick yarn, it would go pretty fast, but I use a smaller because I don't like to look at that big heavy yarn, and I could probably make in a yarn in an hour I might make an inch. Maybe 2 inches, depends on how the size of the wool and how wide the sash is going to be, so it's hard to tell. We never know what incident of childhood may lead us down a fascinating road in our adult years. Fortunately for me, I was born and raised in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains in northwestern Montana, before the arrival of radio and television. On winter evenings, my mother would read to the family. My favorite stories were of the Canadian North. The rivers named the Yukon, Liard, Mackenzie, Saskatchewan, Athabaskan, and Churchill brought visions of fur brigades and canoe men who later came to be called the voyageur. It was memories of these men of the North and their colorful but dangerous life that has led me to travel many northern rivers and see their great lonely land. One small way to participate in their culture was to learn to finger weave the century fléché or arrow sashes worn by many of them. And that's why I got interested in finger weaving the beautiful sashes.
We now travel to Missoula, where a multicultural Native American festival is being held. One of the many events includes a teepee race. The purpose of the teepee race is to put your teepee up faster than the opposing team. The race is started by tying 3 or 4 poles together to make your base for your teepee. Then, you lay the remaining poles in a circular fashion to complete the teepee lodge circle.
Yeah, pull it down and then drag it out.
It seems the other team is having a little bit of a problem.
You guys can pull it up.
That way, take it out.
And then Junior, put all of your weight on those 3 poles when they're standing it up. Yesterday I did. Just might as well just start racking it. Come together and start over. But tie them.
Finally, you take the canvas lodge and wrap it around your skeletal frame.
Real tight.
Up higher, Am. Up. Help her. Help her.
Getting warm, we got a lot of cold drinks here on the top. We got rats, we got fried bread, and we got...
Where'd you get those?
That's the whole thing. Never give
Okay,
up.
go
Just
get
keep
one
on
over there,
building.
baby. Go get one.
Oh, good, Emma.
Good job, Am. Okay.
Good job, Em.
When erecting a teepee for actual use, you would take more time and precision putting it up, and you would stake the teepee to the ground and lace the front for a more permanent structure. But for the purpose of a teepee race, this will do. Stephen Smallsalmon, a Pend Oreille elder, shares his knowledge of traditional life, native medicines, and foods.
So this gentleman here, I'd like to have him say a few words to you at this time, Mr. Steve Smallsalmon. Steve?
Thank you. The thing I like to talk about a little bit is about the yew tree. I don't know if you guys know anything about the yew tree, but 15 years, 20 years ago, there was a person, about 15, 20 years ago, there was a guy come around down a reservation. This yew tree is what I learned from this person. This yew tree is supposed to, for cancer, medicine for cancer. And when he come and talked to us at the elders in St. Ignatius, I really got interested. So I listened to him really careful. When he walked out, I caught up with him and I asked him a lot of questions about the yew tree. And you use the bark, then you boil it up and you drink it. I don't have cancer, but I use the yew capsule to prevent me from not getting cancer. I've been using it for about 10, 15 years now. But I just wanted to talk about it because there's so many people around here in this world that get cancer. And the guy I bought the capsules from, he talked about the tips of this on this yew tree. They eat the tips of it. I don't know why, because I don't understand deer. I guess they purify themselves, just the tips of these. So that's what I was talking about at my table. And this here bow is made out of yew tree, and because it's so strong. So the tips are the deer hoofs, but we don't use these anymore. Years ago, Indian people used to use these. They used to use them for hunting, and we used to do a lot of game hunting when I was very young. And years ago, we used to go up in the mountains, and when we used to hunt, we used to stay up in the mountains for a whole month. Whole month, we'd have teepees, tents, and you learn about all the game. You learn about yourself, you get your Indian name. I remember when I was young, we used to get an Indian name when you first kill. You learn how to dry meat. You learn how to take care of your kill. And today, it seems like it's all different. We got four-wheel drives, we got cell phones, we go up there and pet a deer and shoot it and put it on and get it, somebody will take care of it, you know, you take it, get it purified. But years ago, there was storytelling, and you learned everything up in the mountains. That was one good thing about years ago. And the berries are brought down there making ice cream. It's not like the regular ice cream, you go up here and buy it, you know. It's the foam, the choke cherries, and huckleberries, and dry meat over there. And there's a lot of things that's different now, you know. Now they make pizzas and all that. Then when you got change in your pocket, you could go in. I seen a place, you know, where I was getting gas. I went in there and I was just hungry, and this chicken was laying there, you know. I didn't ask how long the chicken was in there, and I bought it. And I went down about half a mile and I was already sick, you know. They probably blew that chicken back up. It's probably laying there for about a month, you know. And they aired it back up, you know. So things like that, you know, we just go in, we just buy whatever. We always got change. I remember when I was young, you know, we never had change, you know. We didn't have any money. When we get for Christmas, we get a stocking cap or maybe a handkerchief, and then we're happy. Today, your kids want a four-wheel drive, a car, and all that, you know. And the thing is, you know, there's a lot of things I don't care for today because I guess I'm bullheaded. I learned it from this guy that's eating that fried bread. And that's not really Indian fried bread, you know. Just, I don't know where they get the Indian from. You know, it's just fried bread. But anyway, another thing, that's how we get even with the people, you know. You squeeze that and look how much he's just enjoying it. But I didn't mean to talk like that. But anyway, I was invited to come down here and talk about my berries. But me, I'm really interested in the Indian medicines, you know. Indian medicine is my way. So thank you for letting me talk, and And I hope you enjoy yourself and come to my table, see what I got over there. And I guess they're going to dance here. You're going to dance? They're going to dance and do all that things. Oh, and like you said, I'm a merchant school teacher. I've been teaching for seven years, and I'm a full-blood Ponderay Salish. There's not very many full-bloods anymore. So anyway, then I teach, and we got 40 kids, and we tell them how to talk Indian. Thank you, Lem Specia. I was going to talk a little bit more, but I might say something wrong.
Another important part of the multicultural Native American gathering is the singing and dancing. So we leave you with one final song and thank you for watching Imagi-Native.